you're seeing more and more LLMs being augmented with external data, many times in the form of retrieval augmented generation. We've already seen things where you do a Google search and there are creative cyber criminals who have manipulated the search engine optimization so that they can place their links very high up in the search results, and then all of a sudden, or placing ads up there, and then you click on that link and now you've kind of entered down this dark sort of area where you may be subject to an attack.
Welcome to the Talos Threat Perspective. I'm Hazel Burton. This is the second part of our episode on criminal use of large language models, led by research from Talos's Jaeson Schultz. In part one, we looked at how cybercriminals are scamming each other with fake AI tools and also how they're using increasingly creative ways to jailbreak mainstream models. In this second part, we're moving into the next phase. So, Jason researched dark web forums to find out what tools and methods cybercriminals were asking for, which may give us an indication of where things are headed. We'll also look at the more surprising discoveries that Jason made during his research. And of course, we'll talk about what defenders can do to stay ahead. So, let's get into it. So, in part one, we left off with talking about how criminals are mainly using large language models to write phishing lures or malicious code. But Jason has seen signs that they're pushing towards something more ambitious, an all in one hacking platform that could automate attacks from start to finish.
If you can imagine, if you connect an LLM to something like Nmap, maybe some outbound SMTP infrastructure, you could conceivably ask the large language model to analyze an organization's website or postings in various forums, extract email addresses for known users from that organization, find out a bit of the personal details and information about those users, craft some kind of a custom phishing message, and then automatically send it out, essentially all from the single LLM interface. So it kind of creates this all in one sort of hacking tool they're able to use, where they won't actually have to do a lot of the heavy lifting to kind of extract that content and integrate it themselves. By integrating the tools, they're able to just kind of jump in and basically get the large language model to essentially do their hacking for them.
Another trend that Jason discovered is just how accessible and surprisingly powerful small, uncensored models have become.
I was able to go and using Olama obtain access to an uncensored model and run it on my local machine. And my expectations were not very high initially. But after playing with it for a little bit, I was definitely impressed by how powerful even just a small model running on a small local machine can actually be. And then if you were to take extra steps to try to customize the training set or do something special with that, you really could have taken it pretty far just in terms of what you're able to do locally without relying on any of the external or frontier LLMs that might be out there. So that was one of the findings that I felt was just a little bit surprising. I did not expect the technology at that low level to actually function as well as it did, but it actually functions quite well.
So these smaller models, while perhaps technically impressive, are also a recipe for unintended consequences. And that's why talking about this stuff now is really, really important.
I was definitely a little bit surprised by how much these models are actually being able to use to write code or to even to analyze code and look for vulnerabilities, and then be able to write scripts or even shell code that might take advantage of some of those vulnerabilities. That's happening. That's probably the number one use currently for large language models is coding activities, and that was a little bit surprising to me because I just, Maybe I'm just a little bit old school, but I don't trust the code that these things write very much. But seeing how many people just in general are using these sorts of models to help them write code was kind of a fascinating finding.
So, what can defenders actually do to prepare for these AI boosted threats? Apart from, wish they'd chosen a career raising goats on a farm.
you know, by and large, these attacks are not actually doing anything that we haven't seen before. They are just made better through the use of large language models. Things like identity management are super critical. Looking at endpoint detection and response. These things are going to be able to flag scripts that maybe haven't been seen by antivirus before, but are still on the system doing something malicious or something that's unusual for that particular user. So I think that as defenders, we need to kind of refocus on the basics of stopping many of the attacks that we already see every day and doing it better. I also think there's probably room for AI to assist cyber defenders in these tasks, right? Like looking for patterns of network activity that might seem suspicious. These models can be very, very good at that, helping to analyze and summarize data that are generated through logs and alerting systems and things of this nature to kind of help defenders zero in on the most important things that are happening in their network.
If you are interested in how you yourself can improve your defenses in the Security Operations Center, I would highly recommend a series of studies led by Ryan Fetterman of Splunk. His latest research is all about how we can use LLMs to detect malicious PowerShell scripts. So check that out. I'll leave a link in the description for it. So, finally, where might things go next as this technology evolves over time?
If you look at the advertised features of just some of the cyber criminal LLMs, if you look at some of the chatter that's going on in the underground hacking forums and Telegram channels, there's significant interest from cyber criminals in sort of achieving that sort of all-in-one package, which really frees them up to get more creative with some of the attacks that they're conducting. Of course, you also have things like as your attack, and this is out even outside of the cybercrime world. You're seeing more and more LLMs being augmented with external data, many times in the form of retrieval augmented generation. And I give the example in the blog of, you ask what the weather is today, and of course the LLM has been trained on historical data. So in order to get sort of up to the minute information, it's necessary for it to go out and retrieve some of that information from an external database. Maybe it's from a web page or some content from elsewhere. But we've already seen things where you do a Google search and there are creative cyber criminals who have manipulated the search engine optimization so that they can place their links very high up in the search results, and then all of a sudden, or placing ads up there, and then you click on that link and now you've kind of entered down this dark sort of area where you may be subject to an attack. And so as more and more LLMs are sort of implementing this real time retrieval augmented generation systems, I see a lot more room for attackers to actually be able to manipulate the results that are coming back through the RAG system, and then through that, either adding additional instructions for the LLM to process, which are unbeknownst to the user. And that can then manipulate the final output that is received by that user. But I've even seen instances where the content in a RAG system was manipulated basically to influence individual users, known users within an organization. This is content that might be relevant to them, or content that is specifically sort of mentioning them or something that I know that they're working on. They then go into the LLM and start asking questions, and it fetches this content, which I have basically kind of placed in there custom for that particular user. I'm actually able to even though I'm not able to access that user by, sort of brute force going through the model, I can manipulate the model so that it creates custom output for particular users.
So, attackers quietly exploring ways to influence information sources and shape our responses. Now, that of course means that as we implement more of these technologies into our everyday lives, the phrase trust but verify has never been more important. So, just a huge thank you to Jason for sharing his insights. If you missed part one, go ahead and check that out. And if you liked this series of videos, go ahead and like, subscribe, and share them. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you back here very soon.